Hey up everybody, welcome back to the I'll Do Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Velogames Liege Bastogne Liege. Of course, this is the final round for the men's classic squad game and also for the women's game as well. But the Super Classico will go on further into the year, so be sure to stick around for more videos with that. We're going to start today by taking a look at the men's Super Classico before moving into the classic squad game and the women's event. Of course, Pogacar is the most expensive rider because he is the favourite, and I'm fairly certain that everybody seems to sort of agree with that, apart from Remco, of course, but we'll get onto him in just a minute. Pogacar, I think, makes a lot of sense for you to be picking, considering that he is the favourite for this race. And really, there are some really good 6 and 8 credit riders that you could be picking, so not picking Pogacar isn't really that beneficial. It's not like you can spread your points out more evenly and pick up better riders that way. I think that really picking Pogacar is just like a no-brainer. Everybody should really be doing it. The question really comes with whether you should pick Evenepoel as well, because Evenepoel is, you know, the last race that he did was Catalonia. He's been up at altitude, so we don't really know what's going on with him. Of course, he could be in good form, he could be in bad form. Nobody really knows apart from him and his coaches and stuff. I think that Evenepoel is a good choice. Picking him and Pogacar seems to cover both bases for the people who are most likely to be winning this race. So I think that is a safe strategy, but it could certainly be more worthwhile to perhaps not pick Evenepoel and spread your points out a bit more evenly that way. That is certainly something which I'm thinking of doing with my team, but we'll get onto that once we've got through all the riders. Alaphilippe and Mohoric I don't think are that great. They have both done well in this race in the past. I just haven't seen that form so far this season from either of them to really be warrant picking them. Pidcock is an interesting one as well. After finishing third at Amstel, I was really high on him for La Flèche Wallonne, but then he really didn't do very well, which does make me question my confidence in his ability to do well in this race. I think personally I'm going to avoid him just for the Super Classico, as I'm not entirely certain about his ability to execute in this race, despite the fact that it does suit him very well. I just haven't been filled with confidence with his particularly not great finish at La Flèche Wallonne, considering that that's a race which really should be suiting his characteristics. Saying that, I do think that Pidcock should still be finishing top 15. Barguil, similarly, probably a top 20. He was looking pretty good at La Flèche Wallonne, to be fair. Tiege Benoit, I think could come top 10. You know, it depends if he gets into a move and then kind of solos off or something like he did at Amstel in 2022. You know, maybe he could do something like that, but I think that Tiege is probably pretty safe, a top 20, top 15 more than likely. Cosnefroid has been ill or something, so I don't think you should be picking him. I can't remember where I saw it, but he's put out a tweet or something that he's not feeling that great, or the sensations were good at Brabant-Sipel, but he just didn't have it at Amstel, so not sure what's going on there. He also didn't start La Flèche Wallonne, which is another kind of telltale sign. Mas, this race doesn't really suit. He's not good enough. He's not climbing well enough to drop people, but he's also not good enough at sprinting. Arambarou will probably be the better option for Movistar, considering that if he does make it into a group 2, he could certainly sprint for a top 10, I think. So Arambarou is probably the better Movistar rider to be picking. Madouas will be top 20. Hasn't looked that great recently, but good enough to probably, get a top 20. Mollema and Ulissi, I think, will be domestiques. Vlasov has done Tour of the Alps. It's worth mentioning a few of these riders have done Tour of the Alps, but I don't think that picking them is going to be that great, considering that although they may have looked good at Tour of the Alps, that was a hard week of racing, and those guys will be a lot more tired than the riders who have just been doing the more traditional Amstel La Flèche warm-up. So I'm not overly keen about picking those riders, and Vlasov's really one of those, considering that he DNS'd Alps today, but I think that's more than likely just to try and get to Liège on time. Bardet, I think, was looking good at La Flèche Wallonne. He came top 10, had that absolutely storming attack until it kind of got blocked on the barriers. So I think that Bardet's good for an 18-point rider. Bilbao and Gaudu, probably not that great. I think Gaudu's suffering from bronchitis, so definitely don't pick him. Other 18-point riders that I like would probably just be Woods. I think he was looking good at La Flèche Wallonne. Of course, that is a race which really suits him, and of any race that he should be doing well in a year, that's the one. But I think that he could certainly do well in this race. He doesn't have the sprint of 2018, but I think that he's still a good rider for the top 10. 16-point riders, I think your best one is Lander. Considering that he was third at La Flèche Wallonne, I think that he could certainly be top 5 in here. If a move went with Pogacar and Evenepoel, and a move was slightly gapped off the back, I'd expect him to really be in that sort of realm. I think that the other 8 16-point riders aren't that great. Apart from Paulus, he did crash in Amstel and La Flèche Wallonne, so I'm not sure how he's feeling. I think that Landa's the safer one, but Paulus could certainly be a good second choice if you needed another 16-point rider. 14-point riders, there are 3 quick-step riders, which I'm going to go through first. So you've got Bajoli, you've got Schmid, and you've also got Van Wilder. I think that all of these guys are decent picks, apart from the fact that there is Evenepoel in this race, so they'll more than likely be working for him. When you consider their realm of usefulness here, they'll probably just be domestiques, and their chance of kind of fighting for their own individual glory in this race will be relatively small, I think, just because they'd have to get into a move. Evenepoel would have to have something bad happen to him, or he'd have to be on a bad day or something, and then they'd get their own opportunity. And especially since there's Bajoli, Schmid and Van Wilder, it's it decreases your odds even further as to which one you're going to be picking, which is the correct one. So I think I'd just avoid all of those guys and just pick Skelmoser instead, because he is really good right now, and he's probably a leader for Trek Segafredo. So I think that Skelmoser is easily the best 14-point rider. I think the other ones just aren't that great. Costa, Guerrero, Martin, Piccolo, Sheffield, Sivakov. They're just not really doing too much for me. Tratnik, maybe he could launch a bit of a surprise, but I'm not willing to bank 14-point riders on a surprise. I think that I'd much rather just go with somebody who's a bit safer. 12-point riders, I think that Ciccone is a really good one. 5th place at La Flèche Wallonne. I'm certainly thinking of having Ciccone on my team for this race. So he's looking incredibly strong. Something's just going right with Ciccone this year, and I'm really just liking him right now. Hindley didn't start La Flèche Wallonne, but I think that he should be doing well in this race. He was looking good at Amstel, so I think that he can certainly do the distance, and he suits this race quite well. I think that he could be top 15, probably. Maybe a top 10 on a good day. Jonas Aguirre I picked for La Flèche Wallonne, and I won't be picking him here because he did terribly. Cron was looking good at Amstel but crashed at La Flèche Wallonne, so maybe he might be feeling the effects of that, but I think that he should certainly be finishing top 15 in this race so long as everything's okay with him. Lutsenko similarly, he'd have to really be getting into an anticipating move up the road to really be getting top 10 in this race, but I certainly think that top 20 is quite likely for Lutsenko. He'll either come top 20 or he'll come top 5 just through some kind of genius move. Basically, I think that's it's either going to be a really well or just bang average for Lutsenko. That's kind of how I see it. Volta was looking good at La Flèche Wallonne, which further complicates my thinking because he was good at Basque Country, but then he did badly at Amstel, and then he did good at La Flèche Wallonne. So I don't know what to think of Volta anymore. I think that he'll be good. I think top 20 probably. But he might just be working for Benoit, to be honest with you. 10-point riders, once again, there's none which I really like the look of, so we're just going to skip over those. 8-point riders, the best one is easily Maxime Van Hils. The other ones are okay. You can pick out some other ones like Vervaker or Rob Stannard or Nick Schultz, etc. Kobakosens are all okay. But I think that Van Hils is easily the best one. He was top 10 in La Flèche Wallonne and Amstel Gold Race, so he is looking like a fairly solid option for a top 10 in this race. And he's got a pretty snappy finish as well, so pretty good in a reduced sprint from a second or third group. 6-point riders, there are some good ones, and I think you might be needing them if you're going to be picking Pogacar and Evenepoel. So you've of course got guys for the breakaway like Craddock or whatever. You've got Ferron, who was top 15 at Amstel, probably the best option for Total Energies. You also have Simon Geschke. Gregard will probably get him a break as well. Gregoire hasn't looked that great since Stradi. Not sure what's going on there. Healy's probably joint best 6-point rider alongside Lefay, so I think that Healy's a really good one. Of course, didn't do that great in La Flèche Wallonne, but that might just be because the finish doesn't really suit him, like a big old watts per kilo steep climb. Perhaps not his thing. I think he prefers the rolling terrain like a Brabant Sipel, like an Amstel Gold Race. Liege is very similar to that sort of thing, but the climbs are harder, so I think that Healy might struggle a little bit, but still a top 25 would be a pretty decent result for him, I think. Lefay is arguably the best 6-point rider alongside Healy. I think that you could say Lefay edges it just about. He was amazing at La Flèche Wallonne, and I think that he could be the leader for Cofidis. If you're going to pick a 6-point rider, I'd say that Lefay is your favourite, and then Healy immediately after that. There is also Matteo Sobrero, who I quite like as well for a top 25, top 30. I think that he'll be leading Jayco. He's looking really good, climbing very strongly. So I think that he's the 3rd best 6-point rider, and hopefully you don't need any more than that. The 4-point riders I'd stay away from. honestly, there are none which are even here for which are good for assist points, unless you're really going for some kind of like 200 IQ play on, you know, putting Sean Flynn or Heisker on for like Bardet or something like that. So I'll try and avoid them, just go for the 6-point riders. This is the team that I have right now: Pogacar, Evenepoel, Ciccone, Skelmoser, Healy and Lefay. The only thing which I'd perhaps be considering is not picking Remco, but instead picking somebody like Landa, putting those points into, say, Healy and Lefay to get maybe Woods and Van Hills, possibly. I think that is arguably a stronger team, more well-rounded. It removes that Healy sort of, not inconsistency, but the kind of query that I have over his ability to do this well in this race. And I think that it also gets me Van Hills, who's looking in really good form, but I don't get Lefay. But, you know, we'll wait and see. So that's the scenarios that I'm thinking for the Super Classico. Taking a look at the classic squad game, of course, I have 0 transfers left. I have put those 2 transfers into Evenepoel and Skelmoser, which gives me in this race Evenepoel, Badjoli, Pogacar, Pidcock, Skelmoser, Van den Bosch, Paulus and Ciccone. Quite happy with this team. I think that it could do pretty well. I think that it got a lot of the main favourites. We probably won't be winning, but I think it'll be a decent run at this race. And then moving into the women's team, again, there's quite a lot of options that you can be choosing. I've got Vollering, Lippert, Elisa Chabi, Sheehan van Anrooy, Sylvia Pisco and Castelline. We're 77th at the moment, so hopefully we can move up a little bit. There are some different riders who you could be picking. Of course, the best 6-point rider is Riolini, who came third at La Flèche Wallonne. That's no surprise to anybody. There are some good ones as well, like Elisa Longo-Borghini, Cavalli, Mulmapasio, Nieviadoma. My only problem with these riders is that I think you can get the same quality sort of rider, but like 8 to 10 credits cheaper. I don't think that Nieviadoma or Mulmapasio are categorically better than a Persico or a Chabi, to be honest with you. And for that reason, I'd prefer to just pick Vollering and then spread your points out quite evenly below that. That's just kind of my thinking. I just don't think there's that massive discrepancy. Like, apart from Vollering, who's on her own kind of level, everybody else is relatively like similar in terms of ability, and it kind of depends on the day. And I think that you could have a better team by spreading your points out a little bit more. But if you did want somebody like Nieviadoma, then you've also got like Gaia Riolini as a 6-point rider for you to be picking if you wanted to go that way as well. I'm not certain about Van Anrooy. I might pick a different 12-point rider, somebody like a Costa or a Paladin who finished 5th at Amstel Gold Race, maybe a Sant Esteban, something like that. Let me know if you think of any other 12-point riders who are better. And that is it. Of course, that's the end of the Classic Squad game and the Women's Classics game. Let me know what kind of transfers you're putting onto your Classic Squad game down below, and also for your Super Classico and Women's races respectively. And all that is left to say is to stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Salut!